Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hello, you're listening to the podcast, So There I Was. This is episode number 137. 3 beers in. Are you guys okay to fly?
Sure, Skipper. Put me in, coach.
Those words were actually spoken. Oh, my gosh. In the middle
on both sides of the conversation.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, we're good to go.
Oh, yeah. And I don't want to ruin it, but the follow-on verbiage is really going to make your mouth open when you find out what they had to go do.
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, what are you going to do? Yeah.
This is our second round with Bātar. Bātar, as you remember, stands for Big Al, the albino Rio. Yep. Our first F4, Marine F4 Rio, radar intercept officer, and holy cow, what a genuine...
The stuff he did.
Yes.
Hard to believe that this gentleman is in his 80s. He sounds like he's in his 30s or 40s, and still going strong. We had an absolute ball having an evening or two at the club with Bātar. Boy, was that a lot of fun.
That was. It went fast, too. You know, I didn't want it to be over.
We spent over 3 hours with this gent, and it felt like 20, 25 minutes. When it was done, we were like, where did the time go?
Right.
So much fun. A couple quick notes. We've got 2 sponsors this week, FTIratings.com. Thank you for coming back and supporting us, and HSI Wealth Strategies, 2 companies that will help you in different ways, but believe me, if you're in the market for either of these things, please give these folks some consideration, because they've given us a lot of consideration to make these stories come to you, and we're deeply grateful for that. Hey, one other thing that we have not ever done before that we are going to do is coming up on the 22nd of December at 1700 Eastern, which is 5 p.m. So that makes it 22 Zulu uniform UTC.
Coordinated Universal Time.
That's what I'm trying to say. It's easy for me to say. We're going to do a Zoom hangout. So look on sothereiwas.us for the announcement with the link to the Zoom hangout. So we're going to get on there, come on in, ask your questions, say hi, bring a libation, have some eggnog with some spiced rum in it or whatever it is your favorite drink. Yeah. And we'll have a little pre-Christmas cheer together as a So There I Was family. We're looking forward to spending a little time with everybody.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Yeah.
It's like being at the bar virtually.
Exactly. Come one, come all. Have a little fun with that. And then, as we mentioned on the previous 2 shows, well, one show before this, one show after it now, is Toys for Tots. If you're looking for a charity to give to this Christmas season, man, no little guy should have to wake up on a Christmas morning and find emptiness under the tree. Little toy from Santa for a girl or a boy unwrapped. Bring that over to Toys for Tots. Or you can donate money to them to help them go out and buy toys for the kids where they see the most need. So,
brought to you by the Marine Corps Reserves.
Bingo. Semper Fi, boys. So, wow, are you guys okay to fly?
Yeah, you guys okay to fly?
Yeah, sure, Skipper. Send me in. And they did. They went out and they flew. And almost ended badly, but, you know, he was here to tell us a story.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
So obviously it didn't end horrible, but it could have. It was touch and go. I don't want to talk anymore about that because it's good. And then also he talked about having a wingman down to 400 pounds. And it took a mayday call to get the air traffic controller to listen up.
Yeah.
And 400 pounds in an F4 with a plus or minus, what do you say, 250?
I thought 350, but yeah, 250, 350. Doesn't matter. I mean, you're talking 12 or 15 seconds worth of fuel either direction.
Yeah, could have been really bad. Could have been really bad.
Eye-watering, yeah. And then, you know what? The other thing he did, we didn't realize it when we closed last week's show. He never went back and closed the loop on his opening So There I Was story. So he talks about Football Island, bombing Football Island and closing the loop on last week's So There I Was. So that was pretty cool. And all kinds of cool Phantom tales.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. See, I'm looking at all the notes, and I was like, I'm having flashbacks. I want to hear him tell them again.
Right? It was fantastic, carrying 24 or 500 pounders at once and pickling them all off and having some come off and some not come off and all other manner of terrifying things. And the most amazing thing to me was the nonchalance with which he basically said, I'm not in any danger. No big deal, except he was, and they lost a bunch of friends. They lost a bunch of phantoms in Vietnam, and he could just as easily have been a statistic. So,
yeah, one of the other Marine Phantom squadrons there lost 13 airplanes.
Yeah. So,
hello.
Yeah. So he has a memoir, which I have actually published on last week's show, and I'm going to eventually get to where I can publish all of our guests' books, links to their books or what have you. But in this case, you remember Rosie, he had a memoir that was in PDF format. He graciously allowed us to publish it. So that's with Rosie's story, and which was you could hear the shrapnel hitting the airplane.
Yeah. Episode. Rosie was a B-24 nose gunner.
Right. And I'm believing, I'll try and look as we talk about it, but he was episode 95, I believe. I'm not entirely sure. And let's see what else. I had a phone call come in right there. Sorry about that, folks. The other thing is his book. So Bātar's book. His is up under episode 136. So if you go to therewas.us/episode/136, you will get at the bottom of that a link right to his memoir, which is about 110 pages of fantastic stuff, to include letters that he wrote home to his parents, which they kept, which allowed him to reconstruct many of his memories post-career. So fantastic stuff. So I think we're rambling on. That needs to stop.
Let's get out of the way.
Let's do it.
Hey, don't sit on the ejection seat handle.
Stay well clear of that thing. You may need it.
You may need it.
This here is a true story about crossing the pond at night in the world's smallest cockpit on the tanker through the weather. Oh, and to the tanker crew who did that, thanks a lot. We really appreciated that. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond of all the...
So there I was. We'd been based in Hawaii, but we'd been pulled out and sent to Japan for a few months. We were now coming home, and when we got in our airplanes on Wake Island, we'd flown from Japan down to Wake Island, and we got in the airplanes. It was raining hard, and the phantom in the rain, when you open the canopy, the rain goes right to the radio. So we started up with no radios, but we headed up to Midway. And by the time we got to the tanker, all but our wingman had the radios back, and the tanker gave us our offloads. And it's a little under 1,200 nautical miles from overhead Midway down to Kaneohe Bay on Oahu. And we're more than halfway down, and our wingman comes up on our wing and indicates that he's got 400 pounds of fuel with a hand signal.
What?
And, at that point, I figured there's no way those guys aren't going swimming. But the first thing we do is we come up with Honolulu Center radio, because we know we have a standby tanker on the ground at Barbers Point Naval Air Station on Oahu. So I try to talk to Honolulu Center. Our call sign was Charlie Brown 1-1. And I go, Charlie Brown, and I wait. They're talking to airliners in and out of Hawaii all the time. Yeah. They don't want to hear me. And so at a break in the comm, I real quickly throw in Honolulu Center, Charlie Brown 1-1. No response, more airliners. I do that 3 times. Nobody's talking to me. Finally, I wait for a break and I say, Honolulu Center, Charlie Brown, 1-1. Mayday, mayday, mayday. And I'll leave it there.
That got his attention. Oh, man. That's how all great aviation tales begin. The old Bill Cosby line, not talking to Noah, comes to mind there. How long can you tread water?
Oh, man.
Repeat here, coming to you from New Hampshire tonight. Hello, Co-Horst. Where art thou?
Hello, Repeat. Yes, Fig, here I am. Lucky enough to be at home for one more day in beautiful Kearney, Missouri, where it's a balmy 21 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh, man. You should go get your bikini on, man.
I just took the furry one off because I just came back inside. And it is our distinct pleasure to welcome back on So There I Was, Bātar, because he's got more stories and we got to get him out. Welcome back, Bātar. Thank you for joining us again.
Hey, my pleasure.
Thrilled to have you back. I had a chance to finish your memo, and folks, go look at last week's show, 136. So there I was.us/episode/136, and you will see his memoir published right there. I'm gonna get it in a centrally located place on the website as well, but it's right there and a great read. It is
great read.
Well documented from, you said mostly from letters home, right?
Yeah, on the first tour, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, fun stuff. Great read. Thrilled to have you back. I think one of the first things we should do is go back over last week's. We never closed the loop on last week's, so there I was. I believe you were bombing Football Island?
Well, I'll start right at the beginning.
Yeah.
We were manning the air-to-ground hot pad on 5-minute alert, and we'd already checked out the airplanes. We had our gear on, and we're sitting in the hot pad van.
Hey, Bātar, were you in Da Nang at this time?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And our airplane had wing tanks on the outboard stations. It had 4 packs of 19-shot 2.75-inch rocket pods on the inboard station.
Rockets.
And then 3 1,000-pound napalm on the center line. And the 1,000-pound napalm were just some aircraft's old external fuel tanks that they probably pulled out of the boneyard and filled with napalm and then figured out how to jury-rig a fuse on the thing. And our wingman had a centerline tank on, and he had 3,000-pound napalm on each wing for a total of 6. So,
oh, wow.
We got scrambled just as the sun was down on the horizon. And it was only about 15 miles southwest of Da Nang. It was I'd estimate a 10 or 20 acre island, and it was shaped like a football, so we all called it Football Island, in the middle of a river. And the river had to be fordable, or the Marines wouldn't have been out there on the island.
Okay.
So they were being attacked by superior forces of North Vietnamese Army from both the north and the south side of the river. And at that time, we didn't have much that we could do for them if it got dark out. There wasn't very good close air support early in the war for nighttime operations.
Oh, boy.
And later on, they came up with C-47 gunships and that kind of stuff that were very good. But we got down there over them, and one of the very, very few times on the missions that I flew, the forward air controller on the ground, who is, obviously one of us, a pilot or an NFO, probably a pilot at that time of the war. And he had a UHF radio, so he was talking directly to us. And the other thing was, the only time I saw it in the war, he said, "I'm going to mark my position with a mirror flash." Roger that. Got your flash. We know exactly where you are.
That's money.
And he said we had an estimated 4 50 caliber. I think maybe the NBA had 51 caliber, but roughly a 50 caliber machine guns down there, and they had mortars that they were putting onto the island where the Marines were. And so we came down and it got cleared in hot. And our first run, we dropped the 3 napalm canisters we had on our airplane, and they hit the target. We flew treetop level straight into the machine guns. And I don't have a lot to do on runs like that, but I was passing airspeed information once in a while to the pilot so he could stay out of the cockpit. And we didn't want to overspeed the fuses on the napalm, which had a 400 knot carry limit. But while we're in the run and I'm looking down inside the cockpit, I see in my peripheral vision something going by. And I look up, and within 2 or 3 inches of the plexiglass on both sides of the airplane is a solid stream of tracers going by.
Oh, geez.
But we pull off the target, and nothing lights off. The napalm fuses at that time. We finally figured out you could use a chip of wood and block them in and lock them on tight, but they just flew off into space and didn't light the napalm. And our wingman came in after us, and he dropped all of his, and still nothing lit off. So we came around on our second pass, and we walked all 76 of our rockets through where the napalm was on the ground. And the forward air controller on the island held up his radio so that we could hear everybody, and it was like a scene out of a movie. They were cheering loudly on the island. And they were yelling that you got them all. They're all done. I don't think anybody ever went back up there to see exactly what the bomb damage assessment was. We never got an official count of any kind about what we did. But now they could just defend one side of the island for the night, and we really cleaned house on that mission. We came back and landed, and I got out and looked at the airplane. I don't know how they avoided knocking us out of the sky. We lost in that war a lot of phantoms doing that kind of stuff. And we learned later in the war that you were a whole lot better off doing a 10 or 20 degree dive and pickling from a little higher altitude than putting yourself right in the face of the guns. But on both sides of the cockpit, there are intake ramps that at high supersonic speeds put the shockwave away from the intakes. And both intake ramps had multiple 50 caliber hits on them.
Oh, shit.
And this is right next to the cockpits. And those go back through and up through the rest of the airplane. And we had every system working when we landed. We had no leaks, no problems, no nothing. And the plane had to be barged out to overhaul to be repaired. There was no way they could fix it at Da Nang where we were. But I'm just amazed that the plane came back in such perfect condition.
It
it's
looks
a beast.
like that intake ramp is about even with your knees.
Oh, my gosh. I know.
Yep.
Sticks just had the picture up. And, I mean, really, it looks like that ramp is right about where you're sitting.
Well, the good news is the rounds were coming from straight in front of us. So they weren't going in through the ramp into the plane. They were just going backing out.
Okay. Still.
Oh, geez. That didn't really make it that much better for me. Good Lord. Wow. Great story. So, okay. So there was a speed limit.
And lighting off the napalm with rockets was brilliant.
Well, yeah, I know. I mean, glad it wasn't fortuitous that you didn't do the rockets first.
Oh yeah,
and then come back with the napalm, and it never would light off.
Yeah.
So I got you triggered a couple questions there. So the fusing on the napalm, was it a mechanical fusing that just wasn't staying together?
It was white phosphorus.
But the fuse was coming detached from the canister before.
Yeah,
impact,
what it was, I think they rigged it up so they had something that went into the where they used to put the fuel into the tank, and they had something to screw it in there. But one of the other squadrons figured it out that you took a chip of wood and hammered it in between the fuse and the tank, and it locked it in tight enough so that it stayed with it when you dropped it. But we didn't know that at the time.
Okay. And then,
you'd think engineers would figure that out when they're building this stuff.
Oh, well.
Okay, so then that triggered another question. So I heard you say there was a 400 knot restriction on the canisters when you were dropping napalm.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing now that was because you really didn't have ballistic data on speeds over 400 knots, or where it was going to go when it came loose.
Well, it wasn't the ballistic data. It was the fuse, which was on the side of the thing, and they were worried the parts of the fuse would come apart if you went faster than that.
Okay. All right. Well, under the guise of speed is life, and you're running in at treetop level, I think it would be hard to stay disciplined and only be at 400 knots when people are shooting at you with high caliber weapons.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So thank goodness you were in the back seat going, "Hey, pull it back, boss." Here.
Well, I have another tale, and I have another tale that later on that same tour. Early on, the Phantom used to have a utility hydraulic failure as a regular occurrence. And we were up once again with napalm on the airplane. and had a forward air controller calling us in. And while we were waiting to be called in, we had a utility failure. Well, what you do with the utility failure is if you see it going down, you have air bottles to blow the gear and the flaps down. So you immediately blow the gear and the flaps down and make sure you're in good shape. And then if you want to drop ordnance with the gear and the flaps down, there's an armament safety override switch that you can flip. And now you can drop ordnance. So
I can't imagine dropping ordnance dirty. Oh, my God.
Well, the guy that I'm flying with,
Fox.
Yeah, Fox.
Yep.
You know, almost nothing would ever stop him from finishing a mission, no matter what was going on. And so we went in on that mission at 250 knots, and a few guys shooting at us, but nothing heavy. And I was surprised we came back with no holes in the airplane.
How about that? So bomb run with the gear down.
Yeah, they were probably laughing on the ground.
That airplane was a beast. So you also triggered another question. You know, you said 15 miles south of the airbase. I mean, you're there in like a minute.
Oh yeah,
it seems like after you take off. So
oh yeah, yeah.
And you said if the sun went down, you were kind of out of business as far as close air support went until later. Did you guys ever bomb under flares?
Oh yeah.
You said, okay.
Oh yeah.
I thought you said something about that on the last.
Yeah, we did that, on the Ho Chi Minh Trail occasionally, in North Vietnam occasionally, and sometimes on close support in South Vietnam.
Could you describe that for our non-aviator listeners? What that's like, bombing under a flare? What's that mean?
Well, and the flares are pretty bright. They kind of light up the whole countryside. And the nice thing is, if you're dropping above where the flare is, you can see the ground and nobody can see you. So it works out pretty well.
Yeah, so we're real smart, us Harrier guys. We used to, on purpose now at Cherry Point, go out and bomb under flares, but we go under the flare, drop our bombs, come back up in the dark, and then try to find each other going back up.
Oh.
It was dumb.
Well, did you ever try firing Zuni missiles at night?
I can say no to that.
Oh, really?
Repeat, did you?
I'm pretty sure I have. It's hard not to look at them in the daytime. At nighttime, it's next to impossible.
We shot the gun at night, but I never got shot a rocket at night.
No, I was over on the Ho Chi Minh Trail in the middle of the night one time with a guy, and we had decided that we would try the Zunis at night, and we had 6 packs of 4-shot Zunis on the plane, and it was an A6 escort, so we were just behind the A6 looking for the gun, shooting at him. And we found a good pile of guns to shoot at, and rolled in and ripple fired all the Zunis at once. And the guy in the front seat held a hand over his eye, but when he came off, he said, "Vertical row. We're all over the sky."
That's awesome. That's not awesome, but it's awesome now to hear the story.
Yeah.
Oh shit. Okay. I have a note here that I wanted to come back to. Well, actually, I don't think you covered it. So it was I read it, in your memoir, and I'm going to set it up so you kind of refresh your memory. But I think you had flown already, and you were at the club, probably the Doom Club.
Oh yeah. No. The Doom Club was Air Force.
Okay. So, excuse me.
Our club at that point was the thatched roof hut.
Okay. And
but at least it was muddy or dusty.
Yeah. So just to trigger your memory, from what I remember, I think you were about 3 beers in when.
Yeah, exactly. We had 2 or 3 empties on the table, and
please proceed. Yes.
And it was actually Fox, the same guy that I'd been flying with before that. Came in and said, we've got they badly want somebody up in over North Vietnam. They've got a truck park located with a lot of activity. Are you guys okay to fly? Now,
with 6 empty beer bottles sitting on the table between the two of you.
And we're both lieutenants at this time. What a question to ask a lieutenant.
Right? Are you sober enough to fly?
Are you guys okay to fly?
Absolutely.
Oh, that's rich.
No, we went up there, and that we were dropping.
Fox, why don't I take the front seat tonight? Okay.
We were dropping under flares and had a good time, and no problems at all, and came back, and we're on a GCA ground controlled approach, radar approach going in. And all of a sudden, Danny in the front seat realized that he was being called very low. And I looked at the altimeter, and he lit the afterburner, and I saw 0 on the altimeter.
Oh, shit.
We both been asleep at the wheel.
Oh, my gosh.
What?
And you were on it was GCA, PA, were you doing a PAR back in and because of the ceiling was low?
I think it was probably weather, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, so you really said, you said this very nonchalantly. You said they needed you to go up north, meaning north of the DMZ.
Yep.
And drop bombs.
Yep.
And then there really wasn't any excitement for you guys until you came back and you were on the GCA and
exactly.
Oh my goodness.
Oh,
you know, another statistic I looked up recently, they lost over 500 Phantoms in Vietnam, and the Marine Corps lost over 90. So it was not an unusual occurrence to lose people in the squadron.
That's those are heavy numbers.
Oh, I know it. I know. That's just the Phantoms. That's not everybody else.
So did you say before that one of the Marine F4 squadrons had lost 13 airplanes?
Yeah, and I don't think there's any way to document that. But like I said, I knew most of those guys, and I had counted them off while it was going on. And 2 of them were one was a rocket attack. They hit one on the ground. And another one was doing a stray voltage check on a Sidewinder missile that they cooked it off and it hit another airplane. But the other 11 were all shot down. And, I was coming back from being out of country somewhere, and I stopped in Iwakuni, and that squadron had rotated out by then. And I went to the club for lunch, and I sat down with 7 of these guys from 314. And finally, I looked around to the table, and I said, I think myself and one other guy are the only guys at the table here that haven't jumped out of an airplane in the last couple of 3 months.
Oh, you didn't say that out loud, did you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh. What were you thinking?
Sticks just put up that there were 678 F4s shot down in Vietnam.
Yeah, geez. Well, and they're not all shoot downs. There were some of those are accidents.
Sure. But still.
So that's the Navy, the Marine Corps, and the Air Force.
Yep.
Yeah. The interesting thing about that was I found your letters home to be rather nonchalant about, we're not really in any danger. There's bullets flying everywhere, man.
Although I will tell you, Winston Churchill once remarked that there's no more exuberant sensation than being shot at and missed. And I remember when I came back from that football island hop and looked at the airplane, I had that sensation. It was somewhat exhilarating to know you made it back after all those people tried to not have you come back.
I can honestly say I've had that same sensation.
Yeah.
Well, you flew Harriers, of course.
yes, but you don't know the rest of the story. The rest of the story is I had no combat time in the Harrier due to timing, but I had a shit ton of combat time in a C-130.
Yep.
Which
couldn't shoot back.
And it was a very slow, large moving target.
Oh, boy.
So, reminds me, one of my instructors at the basic school once said, it isn't the bullet with your name on it that you have to worry about. It's the one addressed to whom it may concern. So.
Right.
Hey, like I said, better to be lucky than good.
Exactly. The truest adage of naval aviation, if ever there was one.
Oh, yeah.
So Bātar, we had for a long time, and it seems there is a theme, especially with our Vietnam veterans that have come on our show, where there is
livestock incidents,
death to livestock in Vietnam. And so I remember from the last, I think you said, and I just want to clarify, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but were elephants a valid target?
Oh, yeah. On the Ho Chi Minh Trail, they were as valid as a truck.
Holy shit. So, oh my gosh, that's awesome. Sticks just put up that picture. Did you say that you remember being, the forward air controller was was guiding you onto elephants, or was it the water buffalo story?
No, the one we had was water buffalo, and like I said, he had roughly 50 water buffalo in a field, and we wanted to drop all our bombs at once and take the whole herd out. And he said, "Well, let's just drop one and see how you do, and we'll go from there." And of course, one bomb in the middle, and they were all in the jungle in no time.
Sure.
They're not stupid.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, another one to go back to that came to mind was talking about utility failures. And I had the story there. At the time of this tale, Da Nang was supposed to be the busiest airport in the world, and they only had one runway.
Whoa.
And we had a utility failure. So we came in and did a approach end fly into the gear and rolled into it. And the tail hook snagged the gear, and the cable broke and wrapped momentarily around the tail hook.
He hit the gear too hard.
We're doing
too hard.
He rolled into the gear too hard. Oh, wait.
Oh, he's back. So we will get clean audio thanks to StreamYard. Can you start over? We flew into the gear and then you froze.
We landed short of the arresting gear and rolled into it and picked up the cable, and the cable broke. And not because we were too heavy or too fast. The cable, and I heard one rumor that somebody said they thought there was some cable sabotage there, but I don't know anything more about that. But, at 150 knots, all of a sudden we were 30 or 40 degrees off runway heading, but still going down the runway. And it took a few cycles of back and forth with the nose for the pilot to get it under control. And once we were looking reasonably good, he added full power and we took off again. And the tower cleared us to go around and come back in and land from the other end and roll into the gear at the other end. And we made two passes on the gear at the other end and couldn't pick up the cable. So we flew by the tower, and he said, "It looks like your tail hook's bent." So wow. we did a normal landing and rolled out. And the problem with that is there's not a lot of directional steering, but you have some emergency air for the brakes, and you can do a little bit. And we stayed on the runway. And when we stopped, the 10,000-foot taxiway alongside the runway was clogged completely end to end with planes trying to wait to take off.
Oh, shit.
There were planes trying to land, and there were planes in all the ramps backed up trying to get onto the taxiway. And we had just plugged up the whole airport, just clogged everything up completely. They finally got a tug out there and towed us off and got things going again.
Oh, I'm sure all the Air Force guys were like, "Oh, damn Marines."
Right? I think probably the airliners that were in there were probably feeling the same thing.
Oh, yeah. I didn't
that's
think
right.
about that.
Freedom flights were in and out of there.
Oh, shit.
Yep.
Oh,
yep.
Yeah. Wow.
Yep.
And so the Marines on the Freedom flights were like, "Those damn Marines, get that." So you bent the hook. Wow. That takes...
Yeah, it was bad about 30 degrees to the angle of the airplane when we finally looked at it.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So we were chatting pre-show. You counted just shy of 700 combat missions.
Yeah, 685. And my first tour was 235. Because we pulled off and went to Taiwan there in the middle of that one. Right. On the second tour, I flew 450. But
holy shit!
Well, on the second tour, we weren't going into North Vietnam, and there were an awful lot of times on the first tour where we came back and had holes in the airplane. On the second tour, never had a hole in the airplane. We weren't dropping napalm at treetop level for the most part.
Okay.
Well, that brings up something else that. The loads we carry, in fact, I can go a couple of tales on this one. I think this was due to our maintenance officer, who was Mike Sullivan at the time. And we had a couple of airplanes where the fittings...
Iron Mike Sullivan, General?
Iron Mike Sullivan at this time, Major.
Okay.
And,
yeah. But I mean, he's
same,
the one
same
that went
guy.
on to become the General.
Yep.
Yeah, I think he was Lieutenant General when he retired. Yeah.
Oh,
with over 8,000 hours in airplanes and 5,000 of those in Phantoms. But he got a bright idea. As the maintenance officer, we had a couple of airplanes where we couldn't put the centerline tanks on it because some of the fittings couldn't be gotten. So he got a bright idea and said, well, if we can't put a centerline tank on, let's just put another bomb rack on there. And I suspect that he flew it the first time to make sure it worked, but we put 24 500-pound bombs on the Phantom and flew with that fairly regularly.
Froze.
Steve.
I'm back.
Centerline. So you couldn't get a centerline tank on because there was not enough fittings.
So we put another multiple ejection rack on the centerline, and now we had multiple ejection racks on 3 stations on the airplanes and triple ejection racks on 2 stations. And we put 24 500-pound bombs on the airplane. And it still flew very nice. I mean, it took off with using less than half the runway.
24.
But the tough part of that could be that I was out with the commanding officer one day, and we were over in Laos. And we told the forward air control with the target. I forget what the target was, but we told him we wanted to make one run and drop 24 500-pound bombs in the one run. And we did. The skipper set it up for ripple all, and we did our probably a 60-degree dive at 500 knots.
Whoa,
and
that's steep.
Oh yeah,
it is.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
When they're actively firing targets and you weren't really wanting to get shot down, it was a good way to go.
Yeah.
But on this particular one, with ripple all the bombs came off the left wing. All the bombs came off the center line. And we were left with 9 500-pound bombs on the right wing.
Oh, that made the recovery a little dicey, didn't it?
And he almost lost it on the recovery. But luckily, he was a very skilled pilot. He knew his eyes weren't too good, so he never flew the night missions. And we never held that against him. We thought the night missions were fun anyway. And we got back to Chulai. And he kept about an extra 20 knots on the airplane for the landing. And we landed okay. About 2 weeks later, one of the new guys in one of the other squadrons had the same thing happen. And he made an on-speed landing. And a gust of wind caught him and killed them both.
Yeah, flipped him over.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for our non-aviator listeners, we're talking about an asymmetrical load. So a heavy load under one wing and the rest of the airplane's empty. And had he put on a lot of G, which he probably did, he probably had to milk that recovery to keep from departing control flight.
Oh, yeah,
because
absolutely.
Of the asymmetrical load. And then, because of the asymmetrical load, he flew faster, so he had lateral control of the wings to land, and that's what the inexperienced pilot didn't do and lost control because he ran out of aileron control because of the big asymmetry.
Yep, exactly.
Because that's what you fly your approach. It's called on speed at your optimum angle of attack, but you need to be faster with that asymmetrical.
Yeah, unfortunately that's a mistake you can't make again.
Right.
You got to know beforehand.
Yep.
Well, I'm glad you were flying with Iron Mike, and he had his shit wired.
No, I wasn't with him. I was with the CO.
Okay. I'm sorry. Okay. CO. Well, I'm glad the CO had his shit wired.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And was this first deployment when the same CO that taught you not to go into thunderstorms?
Nope. This was the second deployment.
Second deployment.
Different guy. I flew with 2 different COs on the second deployment, and the first one that I flew with had also had another combat deployment before this, but he was kind of bored with this one because a lot of people weren't shooting at us as much, and he liked to see how he liked to see how quick a mission he could fly.
There's
how quick?
Title. He was kind of.
He
bored.
wanted to see how short, how between takeoff time to land time what could he get it down to. So we took off with a full load of bombs heading south out of Chulai one day, and the target was only about 5 miles south. And he has me call up and tell the forward air controller that we need to drop everything on one pass because we're minimum fuel. And we come in with the dumps on, pouring gas out of both the wing dumps, make one run, drop the fuel, and then tell the tower we've got an emergency. We want to change the runway to come in from the south. I asked him many years later what was all that about, and he said he was just trying to keep from being bored.
Oh, my gosh. So he was timing to see how quick he could get it done.
Oh, exactly.
Take off, drop bombs, and recover.
Well, and we did one. We took off out of Chulai one time and went over to another country, dropped the bombs that came back, and they did it all in 12 minutes. over to Laos and back out of Chulai.
Sounds like Laos then. Okay. Wow.
Okay. Okay, so hey, just for a frame of reference, your first combat tour was in 1968?
No, it was 65 to 66.
So, I'm sorry. Okay,
Yeah.
65, 66, and then when you went back, it was
69 and 70.
Okay, that's awesome.
And that's under two different presidents as well.
Oh, yeah.
Without going too political, I guess, how did that change the way things were operating in country, having two different administrations?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Now, when I came back from my first tour, they stuck me in an F-8 squadron that was scheduled to get F-4s.
Right.
And I banged around for 6 months, bumming flights in the other F-4 squadrons on the base. And then they got their F-4s, and that was VMFA 334. And they stabilized for the overseas tour. And I thought about it, and geez, I don't know. I made it back from my first tour. I'm not ready to go back on a second tour. And they just assumed, since I was single at the time, that I was just going to go with them. And I said, I'm not going to waive my overseas control date. And they were kind of shocked by that, and they kicked me out of the squadron. I became the group embark officer for a while. And then while I was the group embark officer, a piece of paper came around. They were trying to find somebody to go to air traffic control officer school in Glencoe, Georgia.
Okay.
And I stuck my name on the list, and before anybody knew what was happening, I hopped in my car and drove east.
Wait. Did you drive east with orders, or were you betting on the come?
No. I had a set of orders. And
Okay.
I went back and
Because you already
became.
changed squadrons once without orders.
I know. Based on the last interview, I thought, well, this is how this
guy
guy
just goes where he
operates. He goes, I'm going to Glencoe, Georgia. My orders will show up when I get there.
Now, I went back and became FAA qualified as a control tower operator.
No shit.
Nice.
Yep, just as a hobby.
Just
Just because the slot was there, nobody wanted it.
typical
And,
underachiever.
And I came back to El Toro and sat around there for a while, and met a girl. Actually, she picked me up in a bar in Laguna Beach, and she said it's the only time she's ever done anything like that. But we hit it off immediately, and I decided I probably ought to get out of the Marine Corps, go back and use my GI Bill and finish a college degree so I can get a job somewhere. So I put in a letter to get out, and Headquarters Marine Corps writes back and says, "You don't understand. You're a regular. You're a regular, not a reservist. You ain't getting out."
There's a war going on, sir.
So I thought about that for a while, and I wrote another letter finally. I said, well, if you're not going to let me out, how about sending me back to the combat zone? And they said, okay, everybody at El Toro, take one step backwards, Massey. You go to the head of the line.
Wow.
And I got to Okinawa, and they said, okay, we're going to send you to Iwakuni. And I said, I don't want to go to Iwakuni. I want to go down and do some more combat flying. So they sent me down there, and I got to Chulai, and they had a squadron going to rotate out and go up to Iwakuni. And they tried to stick me in that squadron. They said, no, I don't want to do that. So I finally got stuck into 314. I spent a year flying combat with 314 that time.
At a Chulai.
Out of Chulai, yeah.
Okay.
Which,
You said
as
that
I
was
said,
much nicer than Da Nang on the first pump.
oh yeah. I've told you, we had Quonset huts and air-conditioned Quonset huts at Chulai. And a chow hall with good food and, all the comforts of home.
Damn, living like the Air Force.
Yeah, I remember seeing the pictures
Yeah.
from the last show, the pictures of Chulai, which, in my mind, it was the opposite. I thought Chulai was austere location, and Da Nang, was all developed, but not in 1965, I guess, huh?
The guys that had it pretty good at Chulai were the attack guys that until later on when they finally moved over to where we were, but they were living on the beach over there.
What?
They had an oak club right on the beach. I was down there one time on my first tour, and they had nurses off one of the hospital ships in the oak club with them.
No.
Holy smokes.
Okay, you said the attack guys. Repeat and I know what you're talking about. Can you for our listeners that maybe aren't aware, what are you referring to when you say the attack guys had?
Yeah, and at that time the attack aircraft on the first tour were the A4. Okay. And their sole mission, they had no fighter mission at all. and their sole mission was dropping bombs, generally in close support to Marines on the ground. And on the second tour, they had the A6, which was also just an attack aircraft. But the A6 in that time frame on my second tour was an amazingly impressive airplane for the missions that were going on.
I recall you saying that. Can you tell us why it was so impressive?
First of all, they had to fly in at a constant altitude of around 4,000 feet for 25 or 30 miles, so their system could lock onto trucks on the Ho Chi Minh Trail.
That's right.
But then I also read accounts in between my tours in 67, 68 time frame. They were doing such clever things as going off with a single A6 at night and going up into the area of Hanoi and dropping their bombs and coming home again. Just boggles the mind.
What?
Oh yeah.
I'm hold on. I'm still processing. Well, I think I heard you say they were going single ship up to Hanoi.
Yeah, they were.
Oh my God.
That's
terrifying.
I'm still trying to process that. So we need to find one of these crazy people that actually did that and ask them what?
Yeah.
Bātar, do you know any BNs from that time frame?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Now, one of the reasons I picked up on that was that I was grew up in Montclair, New Jersey, and I was looking on the wall of the names from around there, and I found a lieutenant colonel from Montclair, and he had been the CO of a A6 squadron at Da Nang at that time frame, and he died on one of those missions going single ship to Hanoi.
Damn. That really seems like a not good idea.
Yeah.
This is course in retrospect, but I think in real time it sounds like a bad idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course.
Retrospect.
Remember who we're talking to here. Repeat. We're talking to a guy that's 3 beers in, and his skipper comes in and says, "Are you guys good? Because we're going to send you to bomb trucks up in the north." And they went, "Yeah,
let's do it." There you go. It seems like we started almost 10 minutes ago, but we're 43 minutes in.
How is that possible? That is, I swear to you, it's been 15 minutes.
I know. So let's take just a moment, please, and thank the folks who helped make this show possible. And then we'll come back and do some more. Hey, Fig. So there I was.
Oh, here we go.
Flying high, thinking I had my retirement strategy all lined up. Then I learned the hard way how quickly turbulence can shake that plan up.
Let's face it, folks. Planning for a retirement is a lot like flying IFR in a storm. Without the right instruments, if you're just 1 degree off course, before you know it, you're way off course. That's where HSI Wealth Strategies comes in.
HSI, which stands for Horizontal Situation Indicator, that's the trusty gauge in your cockpit that keeps you on course, just like their team keeps you on course for a secure retirement.
And the folks at HSI know a thing or two about the cockpit. These aren't your average wealth advisors. They're also pilots, just like us. Air Guard and civil aviators who don't just fly the line, they now guide the bottom line. Plus, they're seasoned at working with airline professionals, high net worth individuals, and business owners to ensure financial plans that can withstand any headwind.
Absolutely. And they know the ins and outs of the airline retirement plans like nobody else. From maximizing your accumulation while you're earning those high altitude salaries to minimizing your tax liabilities when it's time to pull back on the throttle. Because let's face it, taxes and inflation are like headwinds working against your glide path to a smooth retirement.
And don't fall into the trap of conventional wisdom when it comes to retirement planning. That kind of advice is like asking someone who's never flown to land the plane for you. We, as pilots, have unique challenges, and HSI gets that. They know how to help you avoid a hard landing on your financial future.
And let's talk about the golden rule of pilot retirement. Hey, Fig, how does a pilot make $1 million in his retirement account?
Well, he starts with $2 million and manages it himself for 6 months.
Bingo. And sadly, I've seen that happen.
Oh, dude. So true. That's why you've got to get a team in your corner who actually knows what they're doing. And with HSI, you're not only getting financial advisors, you're getting fellow pilots who still fly, who know exactly what it's like to be in your seat.
HSI can save you serious money. On average, they're finding their clients $1 million to $1.5 million just by making a few course corrections. Imagine what a little trim and rudder input could do for your retirement account.
So whether you're in the thick of your earning years or just about ready to enjoy your time in the jump seat, HSI Wealth Strategies has your six. Don't wait until you're ready to make your approach to realize you're off course. Give HSI a call and see how much they can help you save.
Because, folks, when it comes to retirement, you only get one approach. Make sure it's on glide path. To get your extra million or so in retirement, email robert.walling@nm.com. That's robert.walling@nm, that's November Mike.com. Or call 214-538-7030. That's 214-538-7030 to get started on your path to wealth and retirement today.
Remember, 214-538-7030. Think of it as 214-JET-7030 to keep you flying high in retirement.
HSI Wealth Strategies, guiding pilots on and off the runway to a smooth landing in retirement.
Boom. Fellow aviators, this is Fig from So There I Was, and today I'm talking about an essential step in your professional flying career. That's right, earning that type rating or advancing to your ATP with FTIratings.com. For those transitioning from military flying to the cockpit of a commercial airliner, or for civilian pilots ready to step up, FTIratings.com is your premier destination. They specialize in getting you through that crucial type rating and the ATP or ATP-CTP certification that are required gateways for flying with major airlines. Navigating through the requirements for advanced certifications can be complex, but FTIratings.com makes it straightforward. They offer expert guidance and instruction tailored to help seasoned pilots like you achieve your goals in the aviation industry. Every FTI instructor is a veteran who has been through this very process and knows exactly what to teach you to get you ready for your ATP or type certificate. And if you're looking to maximize your benefits, FTIratings.com is an excellent choice for using your VA benefits. How about that? Plus, just for our listeners, when you mention So There I Was during your registration, you'll get $100 off your first course. It's a great way to kickstart your advanced training and save some money as you prepare for the next big leap in your flying career. And don't forget, no matter where you are, you can prepare using their iPad-based study materials at a time and location that's convenient for you. So whether you're aiming for that Boeing or Airbus cockpit or gearing up to earn your ATP, FTIratings.com is your co-pilot in professional aviation training. With their specialized courses and expert instructors, you're not just learning, you're getting ready to take command of an airliner. Thanks for joining me on this flight path to success. Remember, with FTIratings.com, clear skies aren't as far away as they seem.
All right. Outstanding. Thank you both, HSI Wealth Strategies and FTI Ratings, for helping make this possible. And thank you to all the patrons who support this show and send us money every month. We really, truly, we couldn't do this without that kind of support. We're humbled.
Let me kick in. I listened to your Dos Gringos talking about if you go down to the North Atlantic, it's over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On one of the transplants we did, we have an A3 as a pathfinder for us, and we took off and joined up with him, and we're all wearing 1/4-inch wetsuits, and it's nonstop. And I think we were out of Maine heading over to Norway nonstop.
Okay.
And we finally join up on the A3, and these guys knew that song, and we looked over at them, and they're all wearing wash khakis in the cockpit.
Yeah, because they knew better, right?
And then we got over there. They had the King of Norway greeting the crews. No. And I'd been over 8 hours in the cockpit, and I walked right past the king, walked up over the berm and out into the woods.
Had to go see a man about a dog, did you?
Exactly.
Oh, that's great.
Now,
Sorry, Kingy.
Did you guys tank on the way over?
Yeah. And on that one, we used Marine KC-130s met us partway over, and we topped off with them.
Oh my gosh! So you guys had to slow down, flaps down, and get right to tank off a KC-130.
No. By this time, the KC-130s were pretty good, and when we were first in Vietnam, they had a toboggan to get a little more speed up, and even then, it was really tough.
Hey Bātar?
Yeah.
We gotta make sure you're using terms and you repeat, and I get it totally. What do you mean by toboggan?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, the KC-130s back in those days were a little underpowered, so we'd get up with them, and then they'd point the nose downhill a little bit and try to get up enough speed so that we could stay with them
Without falling out of the sky.
Without falling. And what was really tough was once in a while somebody would fall out of the basket. And now you've got a partial load of fuel in you. You're heavier, and you have to try to get back in the basket. And sometimes it took mid afterburner to stay there.
Oh my gosh! Yeah,
and
now more fuel than you're taking in.
I mean, really, these are the things you don't think about on a just a normal operational basis. But holy shit! Okay, so you got your fueler. Your refueler is up high, and he's coming downhill, so he can go fast enough for you to get slow enough to get in there.
Exactly.
And then, oh my gosh,
that's crazy.
Another quick shot that has nothing to do with refueling. Another time, probably February of '66, somewhere in that time frame. I'm with one of the new pilots, and he and I are in circles up just south of the DMZ. And waiting for the forward air controller to call us in. And I'm playing with the radar, and I look up into North Vietnam, and I find a target that I estimate to be a little over 80,000 feet.
What?
And the fastest overtake that the radar would record was 2,700 knots closure. And it's locked at 2,700, so the closure is something greater than 2,700 knots. And we're just cruising around at about 450 or so, so the rest of it belongs to that airplane. What? And I think there's something screwy here. So I brake lock, and I scan, and I look at it, and I lock it up, and I brake lock, and I lock it up, and it's a big target, and there's no doubt. And it finally goes right overhead of us, and we don't see it, but the radar shows it going right over our tops. Okay. We talk about it, and we decide that we're just not going to debrief that.
That didn't happen.
They're gonna tell us that we were really off in some other place if we tried to tell that story. And it wasn't until I got back to El Toro after that tour, and I'd been there a while, and they had a fighter weapons symposium down at Miramar. Mm-hmm. And at the fighter weapons symposium, they brought down a bird colonel, and his backseater was a major that were flying the YF-12A.
Which is a precursor to the SR-71, maybe?
I think they only built 3 of them. They were the interceptor version of the RS-71.
Holy shit.
And I found out then that the RS-71, even in early 66, was flying missions right over the middle of North Vietnam and coming down. And why he was such a big target, I don't know. He must have had a panel off. Something going wrong with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
that was pretty stealth airplane.
Well, yeah.
Oh, my God. Yeah, 2,700 knots closure, though.
Well, back at El Toro, when before I went overseas, we had a squadron that was profiling their airplanes to go across the ocean. And another guy and I volunteered to take one with 3 tanks up on it and profile it. And the first thing we did was we went up to, I can't think of the name of the base in Sacramento where they flew out of. But we knew where the RS-71s and the...
Mather?
I don't think it was Mather. I think there's 2 bases there. I think it was the other one probably.
Oh, Beale.
Yeah, it was Beale. Yeah, it was. It was. So we listened on ground control to see if we could hear them coming out, and they had a specific departure corridor for them. So we got up at the top of the departure corridor, and we heard one take off, and we started downhill trying to find them on the radar. And at that time, we had the F4J had the brand new pulse Doppler radar, which was pretty solid radar. It was kind of the best around at that time frame. And I'm working the radar trying to find this target, and we know where he is, coming right at us. And finally, the guy that I'm flying with gets a visual on him, and I finally break him out at somewhere around 8 miles or so on the radar. And wow. That's when we finally figured out that it had stealth characteristics.
Yeah, because that's really close, and that was not a small airplane. No.
And after that, we still had fuel, so we went over in low level through Yosemite.
Great.
Hey, can you just kind of dumb down and for people that aren't aviators and describe what a pulse Doppler radar does for you?
Yeah, the pulse radar, the regular radar we had in the Phantom initially. The only trouble with it was when you looked at low altitudes and looked at the ground, it was almost impossible to break out a target while you got all the ground return back on there. And the Doppler radar looks at the speed of the return, and the stuff that is not moving is all blanked out, and so you can see targets. It wasn't unusual to find targets out to 60 or 70 miles with the Doppler radar. Now they're just hugely better than that.
Nice.
Yeah, but that was huge, right? I mean, the pulse Doppler part was huge.
Oh yeah, that was brand
because you could filter out non-moving targets.
Yep.
Well, at least targets that were because you could set a gate, right? You could set I want to filter out everything that's doing less than 90 knots closure on me or something like that, right?
No, you couldn't do it on that radar. No.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, so thank you for that definition, but that's a big damn deal. So when you say, you're trying to find this guy and you couldn't find him until 8 miles, it's because his radar cross section was so small that you couldn't even paint him until then, right?
Exactly. Yep.
And so trying to paint a picture for our non-aviator listeners that, this airplane that you were trying to find is not a small airplane. We're talking an SR-71, which I don't know exactly. I've seen one in person several times in museums. They're giant.
Yep.
But it had stealth
I think they're over 100
characteristics.
feet. Yeah, they're at least 70 feet long.
Styx is frantically going to throw something up. But the fact that you couldn't find it to 8 miles is huge because this thing is like, a Greyhound bus coming at you.
Yep.
Size-wise, right?
So,
But it was
which really amazed me that I saw the one as a big target coming out of North Vietnam. But like I said, he must have had a panel loose or something going on.
Right. Or maybe some bad paint or, who knows. But I'm glad to hear you say it wasn't egg-shaped with strange lights and flew over your cockpit and then did a 90-degree turn.
Exactly. And we had Punchy on episode 54. If you go back and you want to hear tales from an SR-71 pilot. Sadly, we lost him about 3 weeks after we recorded with him. But yeah, fantastic show from a guy who actually flew those. Amazing airplane.
Now, real quick again, let me tell you the great Santini story.
Oh,
Nice.
please do.
You know the movie, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, I read the book and saw the movie.
Okay.
Book
And if you remember, early on in the movie, there's a practice dogfight between 2 Navy Phantoms and 2 Marine Phantoms.
Yes.
Right.
And I was the assistant AMO in the squadron that had to repaint our airplanes to say Navy on the side.
Oh.
No.
For whatever reason, I still, sitting on my desk here, I have a black and white photo of sitting in 251's hangar at Beaufort with Navy on the side. And the CO at that time decided that only the same 4 people would be in any of the flying scenes just to keep the paperwork down. So he and a friend of mine and 2 other guys were in the movie there. And then we had a series of accidents over the next year. And the first one was that a couple of guys went out and were, what we called ACM. And I heard it on one of your broadcasts, they call it the basic fighter maneuvering for dogfighting now. But basically, 2 guys are out doing 1v1 dogfighting, and they took it too low, and the Dash 2 pilot lost it at a fairly low altitude and thought he could recover it and got out of the spin or post-stall gyrations, whatever he was in, but they knew they weren't going to make it, so they initiated a dual ejection at a fairly low altitude. The guy in the back seat, the seat goes to the back seat first and then the front seat. The back seat made it out okay, and the front seat didn't. And I got to spend 2 weeks on a Navy salvage ship trying to find it, and we never did find it. But,
were you part of the accident investigation team?
No, I just got stuck on the ship so that if somebody had to dive and get the pilot out of the airplane, I could be there for that. But it was sometime after that, we sent crews to the weapons tactics instructor course at Yuma.
Right.
And two of the guys that were in the Great Santini had a mock dogfight with an F-15, and they were doing a convoy escort of some sort, and the F-15 jumped them, and they said they got a good, or I'd heard they got a good shot on the F-15, and they turned to go back to the convoy, and they looked back, and the F-15 was chasing them. And so they went supersonic at very low altitude, trying to get away from the F-15, and missed clearing a ridgeline in the Chocolate Mountains by about 3 feet.
Oh.
And just scattered the airplane all over the desert.
Oh.
Yeah.
And that took care of two of the guys in the movie.
Jeez.
And some months after that, our squadron CO, who was just a great guy, was going to be a general almost undoubtedly. And yeah, there's the picture of Duval. Yeah. And Duval followed one of the fighter squadron's COs around for quite a while. And then he was walking around the base in a lieutenant colonel's uniform, and everybody'd salute him because nobody knew who the hell he was. And he'd go into the PX and buy things, and nobody would challenge him.
Right.
Oh, that's great.
Wearing a bag with Lieutenant Colonel USMC on it.
Oh, wearing the full winter green uniform. But our CO had moved up to become the Group XO, and he was out flying with one of the other squadrons, and they were doing night supersonic intercepts at high altitude. And the way you do a reattack, you try to take a simulated sparrow shot out front, and then you try to turn around and come behind the other aircraft. Well, when the other aircraft's doing high supersonic speeds, the only way to turn around and get behind them is to start the turn way out front. So we always briefed altitudes when we practiced those to make sure that everybody knew where the planes were, because a lot of the time you were turning right under the other airplane as you made your turn.
Sure. And
this night, the fighter aircraft didn't hold the correct altitude, and they had a midair in the middle of the night, and that was the end of the CO. So we had memorial services for a while there.
Damn.
And the fourth guy in the movie is a friend of mine that we both have summer places on Cape Cod up in Massachusetts, and I see him every summer, and we go out fishing together a lot. But he had gone to the West Coast in a TA-4, and they were coming back over Texas, going home at altitude, something like 34,000 feet, and the plane stopped working.
Oops.
They went down a ways with it, and then they finally decided, it's not going to start. And they jumped out over Texas without any problems whatsoever. That took care of the Great Santini aviators.
Wow. So that kind of had a bad cloud hanging over it.
Yeah, it did.
You know what? It was the Navy being painted on the sides of the airplane.
Right?
That was
That's
the bad
bad
luck
luck.
part right there.
Might have been the thing that did it.
I want to come back to something you said that I think is it's pretty awesome. And if you could, so you're talking about these high speed intercepts, and when you would, you'd shoot the radar missile from basically head on, and then you would, but because of the speeds, you'd have to, and you try to intercept from behind and shoot another missile. Because of the speed, you'd have to start turning way before you ever passed them.
And you'd be bleeding speed in the turn anyway, and this guy's already faster than you, so you really had to start quite early to get a second shot.
Yeah, that's so. That's a lot of closure. A lot of closure.
That brings up another tale here, real quick.
Awesome.
When I was out on the Navy salvage ship, it was the USS Edenton, and it had about 110 crew. It had mixed gas diving in a decompression chamber and big salvage winches. And it had a small helicopter deck on the back. So being a Marine, every day I was out there, I'd go out and run 3 miles around this little helicopter deck. just to let the Navy know what you could do.
Right.
They must have thought you were insane.
Well, the first night we're out to sea, and we've got pretty good seas, and the ship's got a round hull. And we're rocking back and forth and up and down. And the officers' mess had a table that seated 6. So they put me at the head of the table so that I'm athwartships, sideways to the motion of the ship. And then they feed this huge greasy meal, just all kinds of stuff. And I'm just scarfing it down. I'm having a great time. And they finally come out with strawberry shortcake for dessert.
Oh, no.
And I asked for seconds. And we finally get done. And I said, can I get a cup of coffee to finish off with? And they're all looking at me. And I'm going, what? And he said, that's the first time it's never worked. What's
They're
never
trying
worked?
to get you sick.
You're supposed to be over the rail puking your guts out. How come? I said, you don't understand what I do for a living.
Yeah.
Try going out in the middle of the night in a blacked out cockpit.
Heads down in a thunderstorm.
Being up at 40,000 feet with the bogey at 500 feet, and you dive down and you maneuver all over the sky without anything to see outside, and finally come up on the tail and take your simulated shot on them.
Yeah. Yeah. This shipboard stuff, that's nothing.
This is low speed, low threat shit right here, pal. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is great. Thank you. Thank you for not blowing chunks and acquiescing to their tactics.
I was waiting for save me the chunky parts.
Unfortunately, I cannot say that I was never airsick. In my later years, we had a guy in the squadron that had tended bar in Georgetown and gone into the Marine Corps. So we took a cross country up, and his mother lived up in that area. So we went into Andrews, and we went into his bar that night, and we had beer and then schnapps. And every time we'd have a beer, they'd give us a free round of schnapps. And we left there about 2:00 in the morning. And we got up around 5:30 or 6 the next morning to Andrews and got in our planes.
Oh, boy.
And we took off, and I finally said, -2, you've got the lead for comm. I can't hack it. I finally filled my helmet bag.
I have no words.
And
how come you didn't have the comm before it? If we don't stop puking by the hold of short, this flight's a kank. I guess you have to get back.
we went down to Cecil and landed there, and I go into the base ops, and I'm in the head, and I'm washing my helmet bag in the sink, and a Navy chief comes in and looks at me and looks at it, and he immediately understands what I'm doing and what's going on. It just gave me the filthiest look you've ever seen. Made me feel about 2 inches tall.
Oh, that's great. That's rich.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Okay, I have to ask. So, your time frame, when you were, help me out, because it's been a minute since I talked to you the first time. When you first deployed, were you a East Coast F4 guy or a West Coast F4 guy?
East Coast.
Okay, so in the book,
it's when you came back, you wanted to go to Cherry Point, and they sent you to El Toro, and
everybody else wanted El Toro, and they all got sent east.
Yeah, it's the Marine Corps way.
Exactly.
I mean, why the hell not, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So, was there a Bull Meacham character in Beaufort in that time frame?
Yeah, there really was, and it was the CO 115, and I'm blanking on his name.
The author.
Are we on the air still?
Oh my gosh, I think he's.
Yeah, yes.
I think he's place.
He'll be back.
And I'm drawing a blank on the author. Pat Conroy. Yeah, he based it on his father.
Right. Who was a Marine Phantom pilot, as I recall.
Well, I thought he was an F8 pilot. But
maybe F8.
I mean, I thought he was actually an F8 pilot. But so, he was there when there was F8s. So I was wondering if he, if there was a larger than life character, which I think there was a lot of larger than life characters. I think we're talking
Marine
to a larger, but we are in the midst of a larger than life character as we speak.
Yes, we are.
Big Al, the albino Rio, for crying out loud. Okay, Bātar, we were talking about you when you were gone.
Well, the CO of 115 at the time, and I can't remember his name at the minute offhand, but he was pretty much the quintessential hardcore F4 squadron CO, and that's the guy that was the
your own personal great Santini.
Was the basis of the great Santini guy, maybe?
Well, he wasn't the basis, but he was the guy that Duval followed around and learned to mimic.
Okay. So he was who Duval was mimicking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
And that brings
those figures.
I don't think I told the story about going over and on my in 1982 I was in Trip Tray and we our CO got promoted to bird colonel. Did I tell that tale in the first one?
No, sir.
No, sir, you did not.
Now we deployed over to Osan, and there was a F4 Air Force F4E squadron there that had 24 airplanes, and they had a bird colonel CO too. So in the bar that night, we decided that we would do a 2v2 dogfight hop the next day with the COs leading.
Oh boy!
And the loser would buy the beer for the squadron that night.
Okay, so there's
at the club.
There's skin in the game now.
Yep,
for real.
Right. On, yeah.
So we knew at that time that the F4E had a fairly heavy nose, and if it got buried, that wasn't a good thing to do against the Navy and Marine Corps airplanes. And sure enough, on the first pass, the Air Force CO buries his nose to make the turn, and
boy.
Probably within 180 degrees of turn, we've got him. And I'm flying with our CO, and our CO, who I'd known for quite a while, and I'd been in the same squadron with him before. And he locks in probably 400 or 500 feet behind the Air Force CO, and on the radio starts calling guns, guns, guns. Guns on the Air Force F4E in a left-hand turn passing 360. Guns, and he wouldn't shut up. He just we made a full 360-degree turn with him on the radios like that the whole time.
Oh, that's
I almost started feeling embarrassed for the poor Air Force. We finally called knock it off, and the whole squadron went to the club that night. And the Marines owned the club. There were no Air Force guys there at all. They never showed up.
That's
of course not.
Surprising. Weird.
Maybe a show
that's
title
that's
there.
rich. That
guns,
is
guns,
rich.
guns.
Guns on the Air Force F4 in a left-hand turn passing 360. Oh, that's
just
great.
nonstop. Yep. Yep.
Oh man, that's fantastic. Oh boy, we've been going quite a while. How about we circle back to your opening story where you're a few hundred miles off Hawaii and your wingman has no gas?
Oh yeah, 400 pounds. What the hell is that about?
Yep. And you know, my summation at that point when he signaled 400 pounds.
Somebody's swimming.
And I talked to the guy that I was flying with, which was Fox again, was now the squadron CO. And when I talked to him, he said that I was the guy that gave the hand signal. I thought he gave the hand signal. But one of us, when they joined up and gave that, immediately gave him a signal to clean off the airplane, which they did. They hit the panic button, and we're left with no tanks and no pylons and no nothing left on the airplane.
Right, nice and slick.
When I finally made my Mayday call to Honolulu, all of a sudden there was, after all the airlines were talking back and forth, all of a sudden there was total dead silence.
Oh, you bet your ass there was.
And,
as soon as you said Mayday, 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 we're like, oh.
So you were on Victor. You're talking on Victor then. Oh,
no.
Obviously, because you heard the airline.
UHF.
Okay.
UHF.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Let me jump in real quick with this. Military aircraft talk on a different band than civilian aircraft most of the time. I don't know if that's changed since we've gotten out, but so you would only hear half the conversation. You would hear the tower controller, the center controller, that sort of thing. You would hear them talking to Delta 325, but you never heard Delta 325 because they're on Victor and we were on uniform.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you for that.
But luckily, when Honolulu Center came back and I told them that I needed to know where the standby tanker was, and he was supposed to be on the ground at Barber's Point, they said, "Oh no, he decided he needed some flight time, and he headed out your way."
How fortuitous!
So we got hold of the standby tanker, and he was like 70 or 80 miles away, and just amazing that happened that way. And I told the tanker usually likes to call the intercept and tell you when to, start their turn on their call. Yeah. And I said, this time I'm going to tell you when to start your turn. And he started his turn. and we rolled out right. He rolled out right in front of us when he ended his turn, and we were all set up, and our wingman went up there, and he couldn't have had. They must have been reading 0 on the fuel gauges. He couldn't have had anything.
So 400 pounds is what they are indicating. Apparently, what was the gauge error?
Well, the gauge error was, I think it was plus or minus 350, as I recall, something like that. and plus, we're burning 6,000 pounds an hour. So, there's no way that he doesn't have more than just a handful of minutes of fuel left in the airplane.
He's got 6 minutes of fuel.
But he got tanked, and we came in with 5 airplanes, and KGMB television had live camera coverage of us taxiing back in at Kaneohe.
Yeah,
and we taxied in and lined up. And, there's 4 airplanes with 3 external tanks, and there's the guy on the end there with a clean airplane. And I never did hear. I should have gotten the recap from Fox, and I never did find out what the pilot had screwed up on there. But that was the last time that pilot flew in a Marine Corps airplane.
Huh.
Oh.
Weird.
Yeah. Well, he'd been a little shaky before that, but he did something really stupid that time, and I don't know what it was.
Yeah, that could have ended very badly. Thank
Oh,
goodness.
yeah, I thought sure they were going to swim.
Yeah, but, every now and then weird things like that, and then his sticks puts up, because he's our coasty rotorhead. Time to call the Coast Guard? Yeah.
Yeah.
Could have been.
Yeah, for real.
Could have been. What a lonely feeling sitting out there in that raft, watching the waves go by. Watching your friends fly. Kind of like being in LSO, sitting in a boat watching your friends fly. Oh.
How did an hour and 18 minutes go by so fast?
I don't know. This is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic, Marine. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Bātar, I know this. I mean, I don't know how often you hear this, but I'm speaking for Repeat Sticks, Bago, and everybody listening. Thank you for your service, and thank you for telling us your stories.
I wouldn't have missed it, and I really lucked out cycling through 10 squadrons and not sitting at a desk very much at all.
That is a story that is a story in itself. How you did that, in a career without staff tours and all these out of the cockpit tours. I mean, I think the longest you were out of the cockpit was when you went to Glencoe, Georgia for ATC school.
Right.
Well, no, and actually in the middle of all that, I went back to University of San Diego and got a college degree.
Okay.
What was your degree in? Just
in
asking for a friend.
BS in business administration.
Okay.
And being older and wiser, I went back and got an MBA when I got out, and I was always a straight A student after that.
So you had that 1.99 to make up for, and
exactly.
So, not a non-aviation question. So you spent 20 years in the Marine Corps, active duty, retired. Yep. What did you do with your
5 years
career?
5 years before I retired, I had bought 42 acres on a lake in Maine, and 500 feet of frontage on a nice, clear 6 or 7 mile long lake. And it cost me $25,000 at the time.
Oh my gosh!
And when we got up to Maine, I started taking night courses for the MBA. But while I was doing that, I bought a 30-year-old Ford tractor and a new chainsaw. And my wife and I cleared the land. I hauled the trees out and had them taken to a mill and cut into planks and beams, and built a 3-story super insulated post and beam house on the lake up there. And it worked well. I heated with firewood most of the years I was there. And I just go out and knock trees down and hand split 4 or 5 cord of firewood every year.
I don't suppose you could send us a picture of that house that I could embed in the show.
I can absolutely do that. In fact,
that's how he stayed. That's why he looks so damn svelte right now from all those years of splitting wood, for crying out loud.
But then I went back, and Bath Iron Works shipyard in Maine is still building Arleigh Burke class destroyers. And I was there. I got a job there in the purchasing department. And when the first Arleigh Burke was being built, and I ended up putting contracts in place for major ship systems on the Arleigh Burke class destroyers. And then once you put a contract in place, you own it. And you have to take care of any problems that go along with it. And you're also you're putting the contract in place for both the your shipyard and the one down in the Pascagoula at the Ingalls shipyard,
Right.
which builds the same ship. And I think they started with DDG 51, and we had contracts when I left in place for up through DDG 112, and they've still been building them after that. So they're still building them now.
That's outstanding.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Well, very cool. All right. Well,
Do you still have the property up there in Maine?
No, I sold it to a guy that I've known since he was 10 years old, and he was in his 50s when I sold it to him, and he's having fun with it now, and I don't miss shoveling snow and plowing a half-mile long driveway and splitting firewood, so right. I'm happy here, and he's happy there.
Oh, outstanding. Well, that's awesome. Thank you for that story.
Indeed.
Yeah. Sticks put up that picture of there it is. Yeah, literally, I that's what I envisioned. I saw pictures of you from 1965 and 1969 when you were sitting in the hot shack, and you would probably were carting around. You probably had to have help carrying around those giant testicles. There,
no,
right there.
And that's not true. I mean, there were squadron after squadron of us going out and doing that day after day. It was just everybody. I think the Marine training has a lot to do with it.
Right. Professional and humble, but
and he's humble too.
You guys brought it back, and you delivered.
Well, and you're a little worried the first time you go out and get shot at as to how you react, but you find out that with the training you have, it just ain't no big deal.
Yeah. There you go.
Well,
he makes it sound. I know, right? He makes it sound so nonchalant, and I've been standing at attention almost this whole hour and 23 minutes. Can I go to parade rest, sir?
Bingo.
Thank you, Bātar, Big Al, the albino Rio.
That's it.
You are a gift, and we really appreciate you sharing your stories with us.
Indeed.
Well, it's been my pleasure. It's always fun.
All right.
And listen, if you think of some stories that you forgot to tell us, would you send us a message and say, "Hey, I got a couple more," because we need them. Yeah,
we'll do it again.
We'll do it again.
At the club.
I don't think I have enough to make another. I've only got maybe 2 or 3 others, so I think I'm probably good to go.
Well,
we can always do a quick snippet.
There you go.
A snippet for Bātar.
And a life well lived in service to country and corps, and
as you guys found out, I would recommend to anybody that wants a more interesting life that military aviation is certainly that. And there's no guarantees you're going to make it out in one piece, but you're certainly going to have interesting times while you're in.
And you're going to work around some of the most professional people you'll ever have the pleasure of meeting. So
yep,
it's the best.
Absolutely.
It's been the best part of my adulthood. I can promise you that.
Yep.
Bingo.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and land this plane, shall we, Fig? Let's get our thank yous out. We got to thank Dave Hamilton over at Backbeat Media Online, handles our advertising for us and gave us the know-how to put this show up in the first place. So thank you, Dave. What if you want to write to us, Fig? How would you do that?
Well, let's see. You could write to Fig or repeat at So There I Was.
Yeah. But
however,
if you want a real answer.
If you want an answer to a question, I would write to Sticks or Bago at So There I Was, because
1G and Bago.
Yeah. And especially Sticks. He's in the background right now, but that dude's got like a 15-pound noggin, and he's full of more. He's like, what's the guy from Cheers that had all that stuff in his head?
Cliffy.
He's like a Coast Guard helicopter Cliffy. He knows everything, almost about everything. And now he's a medical guy, so he even knows more shit.
Yeah, exactly. So.
He really does have like a 15-pound head, and he is on it like nobody's business. So that Sticks at SoThereIWas.us.
That's it. And if you want some cool merch, maybe a coffee mug with the show logo on there, cool looking logo that, by the way, Sticks designed.
Weird.
Or a bikini with a logo that, by the way, Sticks designed. And the bikini says, So There I Was, if you scan the barcode on the front of it.
It is bikini season below the equator.
In the southern hemisphere. That's right.
We do have listeners down there. So come on. Put
Look,
the
great
Bobby
gift
down.
ideas for the aviator in your life. There's some great merch there. I'm wearing one of the hoodie sweatshirts now. This thing is so warm. I love this shirt. I'm
sweating. I don't know if you can see it, but he's sweating. It's so warm.
Yeah. So let's see. We need to also thank Bago and Sticks for all their help in the background, day in and day out, and all the legwork that they do. It's deeply appreciated, gentlemen. And it seems to me
there's Brad BDS Badass Aviation, Brad Silcott, Badass Aviation, BDS Aviation Photography, who gives us so many great photographs.
Photos, yeah, fantastic stuff. And I don't know, I feel like we're forgetting a couple people, but bet you. Oh, you know what? And Sticks mentioned that earlier, and I forgot. Folks, it's the Christmas season. If you're looking for a charity to give to the Marine charity Toys for Tots, don't let a child go without a toy for Christmas this year.
It's run by the Marine Corps Reserve. You can find places all over, wherever you live, that they're collecting toys, unwrapped toys, for Toys for Tots.
Fantastic charity, because no kid should have an empty Christmas tree on Christmas morning.
No.
So,
and then the music you're hearing is none other than the two Air Force guys that make the Air Force sound good. F-16 pilots, the Dos Gringos. They got 4 albums. They were a great interview when we interviewed them, and their music is outstanding. Not a bad song on any album.
No, even though they lack judgment, not a bad song in the bunch. So
they lack a lot of judgment.
Till next week, everybody stay safe and check 6.
There I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond of all the shit I was wearing on that day. Now an F-16 is cramped enough, but it's even worse with all that stuff supposed to save your life. But we knew there was no way. 'Cause when you're going down the North Atlantic, man, it's over.
It's what?
He said it's over.
Okay, I didn't ask for your life story.
And actually we did, and we're grateful to have gotten it. We're out.